Making excuses is pointless. You're fired. Submit your resignation by the end of the day.
I was on my way to an important business meeting when I narrowly saved a child from being hit by a truck. I handed the unharmed child to his mother and hurried to the meeting, but I was 20 minutes late. My boss, who had come with me, yelled at me.
Do you realize how important today's meeting is? Being 20 minutes late is inexcusable. It's common sense to arrive 20 minutes early.
I knew being late was my fault. However, I wished he would understand the situation instead of just getting angry. I'm truly sorry, but please hear me out. There was a child about to get hit by a truck.
So what? A random kid or a business deal? Which do you think is more important? Someone who can prioritize doesn't belong here. You're useless.
I was shocked and disgusted. He valued business deals over human life. Understood. I don't need this kind of company. I decided to quit, just as my boss had said. Little did I know, my decision would later lead to his downfall. My name is Alex Summers. I work for a bedding manufacturer. I'm in charge of selling beds at a major company that has a wide range of brands, including beds, sofas, pillows, and cushions. My parents used to suffer from back pain, but it eased after they switched to our company's bed. Good bedding improves the quality of life. Knowing this through my parents, I wanted to bring quality sleep and a better life to as many people as possible, which led me to join this company. I'm responsible for a large store that includes offices, but I also visit other stores and conduct business meetings as needed. Consulting with people who have sleep issues is interesting because of the variety of problems they have. Later, when customers come back to thank me for helping them sleep better, it's very fulfilling. However, lately, I've been questioning my job. Due to major furniture manufacturers selling cheap, good-quality beds, there's a divide in the company about future sales strategies. One faction believes we should continue providing high-quality beds, while the other advocates for selling more, even if it means lowering quality. I, of course, want to continue delivering good-quality products. There are plenty of cheap beds out there. I believe our beds should exist to make the essential human activity of sleeping more comfortable. The company's policy hasn't changed yet due to this deadlock, but I can feel the profit-seeking faction growing. Sometimes I think I should just work for another furniture maker. Amidst this, a new source of stress appeared. The recently transferred Tompkins. He's part of the Reform faction. Even though the company's official policy hasn't changed, he absurdly demands we sell 3 times as many beds, regardless of their cheapness. Sales quotas should be based on current situations to increase profits. Without any basis or strategy, meeting a 3-fold increase is impossible for us. His frequent disrespectful remarks, like "just force them to buy," show his lack of regard for customers. He only gives orders and does nothing to increase sales. He doesn't even visit the store. His constant focus on raising profits is another reason for my dissatisfaction. I often wondered why Tompkins, who lacks management skills, holds a managerial position. A colleague chuckled and said, "It's all about seniority here. Long service alone can get you a managerial role." Whenever we, the sales team, desperately secure contracts and increase profits, he arrogantly claims, "It's all thanks to my guidance," and sends reports to the headquarters, overstating his non-existent achievements. Conversely, when customers complain about being forced into purchases, he never faces the issue himself. Instead, he makes one of us deal with it, reporting that the employee lacked cooperation and inconvenienced the customer, shifting all the blame onto subordinates. Working in such a company, I started to lose sight of what I was gaining day by day. I just wanted to spread the word about the quality of our beds, not push products indistinguishable from others onto unwilling customers. It seems like I'm working solely for Tompkins. Amidst this, I learned from a hotel, one of my sales destinations, about their plans to build a large resort. If they could use our beds, it would be a massive deal. When I proposed the idea, they even requested custom-made beds. There are still people who need our products. Elated, I was determined to make this deal a success. When I reported this to the company, Tompkins quickly got wind of it and encouraged me with, "You better make it a success." I didn't mind the support and earnestly replied, "I'll do my best." But then he said something unbelievable.
If this succeeds, my promotion is guaranteed.
My enthusiasm deflated instantly. To him, getting our beds to more people is secondary. I'm just another pawn for Tompkins. No matter how hard I work for the customers or the company, it's Tompkins who gets the credit, even though he only thinks of himself. What am I working so hard for? These gloomy thoughts began to consume me. Then, the deal with the resort hotel became more concrete, and I learned that the estimate reached a staggering $100 million. Given the large number of rooms and the desire to deliver a high-quality, comfortable space, this amount seemed trivial to the client. I had ambitions too. If this deal went well, maybe other employees would reevaluate the quality of our products. We can make cheap beds of decent quality, but our brand's beds are unique. If they understood this, maybe they would reconsider. For me personally, this was a major undertaking, a gamble on the company's future. On the day of the negotiation, I got off the train at a large station near the client's location and walked down a busy street lined with office buildings and shopping malls. While waiting at a red light at the crosswalk, I noticed a little boy standing next to me, wearing a backpack. It was just past 2 p.m., so he was probably on his way home from school. Off this main road, there are residential areas, elementary schools, and middle schools. As a kid, I remember dreaming of becoming a pilot or a baseball player. Lost in thought, I saw the boy start to cross the road. The light had turned green. I can afford to zone out now. I have an important business meeting, I thought to myself, and stepped onto the crosswalk. Suddenly, a truck turning right from the far end of the street, without slowing down, was heading straight for the crosswalk. The little boy was still walking across. He froze the moment he saw the truck, which didn't seem to notice him and showed no signs of stopping. Thinking he was about to be hit, I ran, grabbed his backpack, and pulled him backward. I embraced his small body and rolled onto the ground, landing on my back. When I got up, the truck had passed by, as if nothing had happened. Ouch! Are you okay, kid? I checked on the boy. He seemed stunned at first, but then realized what had happened, and started crying loudly.
Ah.
There, it was scary, wasn't it? I comforted him, stroking his head, and moved to a safe place. He didn't seem injured, but he wasn't in a state to go home alone. I wiped his tears with a handkerchief and handed it to him. Can you contact someone from home? He was still sobbing, but managed to pull out what seemed like a child's smartphone from his pocket and handed it to me without a word, seemingly trusting me. I'll just borrow this for a sec. I called a number saved as Mom on the phone. A woman's voice answered.
Hello, Ray.
Sorry. I'm calling on his behalf. My name is Alex Summers.
Though.
There was a moment of confusion, understandably so, hearing a stranger's voice instead of her sins. I explained the situation as calmly as possible to avoid alarming her. So, Ray can talk right now. I'm calling in his place. Mom, can you come pick him up? After giving her our location, she said she would be right there. Your mom's coming soon. Let's wait here, okay?
Okay.
The boy nodded, a bit calmer now. I handed back the phone and then remembered something. My phone, I hope I didn't miss anything. I took out my smartphone, only to find a slew of missed calls from Tompkins. Reluctantly, I called him back, and he answered after just one ring.
Alex, where are you? Making our client wait. What are you thinking?
Well, I was startled by his loud voice and accidentally dropped my phone. It switched to speaker mode, making his yelling even louder.
Where are you now? Do you have any idea how important today's meeting is? You've got 5 minutes to get here, or you're fired, no matter what the reason. We don't need incompetents who can keep time.
Then the call abruptly ended. Startled by the sudden outburst, passersby were giving me curious looks. I quickly put away my smartphone.
Fired?
It seemed the boy had heard everything. Whether he understood the meaning of fired or not, I didn't want to look bad in front of him. I had to seem like a reliable adult, or the kid would surely feel anxious. I couldn't really hear. The call got disconnected. I put away my phone and asked, using the name his mother had mentioned, "Your name's Ray, right?"
Yes. And you are?
"I'm Alex Summers."
Alex. I have a friend named Alex too.
Really relieved to see Ray perk up. Just then, a woman calling his name came running. Ray reacted with a mom. As he saw her,
Ray, I'm so glad you're safe.
his mother, tears in her eyes, embraced him. Ray used the handkerchief I gave him earlier to wipe her tears.
Thank you so much. I don't know how to express my gratitude.
Ray's mother seemed to be around my age, a very beautiful woman. Ray will probably grow up to be handsome too. No, it was just a coincidence.
Can I see you again, Alex?
Well, Ray asked, tugging at my shirt. His mom chimed in, "Please, I insist."
Let me properly thank you. I can't just let this go. Also, this handkerchief belongs to you, Summers, right? I want to wash it and return it to you.
It felt wrong to refuse after such a request. We exchanged contact information and agreed to meet again later. I'm glad I could help Ray. His mom seems nice too. After parting ways with them, I checked my watch and broke into a cold sweat. 10 minutes had already passed. I hurried, but still ended up being 20 minutes late. Thankfully, the client wasn't mad thanks to my previous good conduct. The problem was Tompkins. As soon as I left the office after the meeting, he berated me furiously. Unbothered by the startled passersby, I thought about the client witnessing this, but I, who was late, had no right to complain.
Do you realize how important today's meeting was? 20 minutes late. It's common sense to arrive 20 minutes early.
I'm really sorry, but please listen. There was a child about to be hit by a truck.
So what? A random child or a business deal? Which do you think is more important?
I was shocked and appalled. He valued the deal over a human life.
Making excuses is useless. You're fired. Submit your resignation by the end of the day.
By the end of today. What about the deal? It was going well.
What? Why are you worried about that? I'll take over. Anything you can do, anyone can do. You think you're special or something. It was just good timing, right?
Something inside me snapped. What's the point of working under someone like this? Even if the deal succeeds, Tompkins will take all the credit. So, understood. I accept being fired. I gave up on arguing further. I calculated my remaining paid leave, wrote my resignation, and submitted it to HR. Being forced to write personal reasons as my reason for leaving, I felt nothing anymore. As I cleared my desk, I felt the stares of my colleagues.
Alex, are you really quitting?
A coworker who went to today's meeting with me asked in a low voice. Yeah, it seems like I'm fired.
That's terrible. Just for that.
I appreciate your concern. Take care of yourselves.
Hey Alex, What are you dawdling for? You're so slow. Get out of here already.
Shortly after, Tompkins rudely kicked me out. Later, I saw a disturbing article in the news online. My former company had launched a new low-priced product. It was clear that the reform faction had gained power. I couldn't keep up anymore. The company I loved no longer existed. Turning off my smartphone screen, I saw my own troubled reflection. I can't show up at Ray's house with a face like this. 3 days ago, I had received a call from Ray's mother, Emily Smith. She had invited me to their home. I crossed the same crosswalk from that day and used a map app to find their apartment. Pressing the intercom at the building, Emily and Ray came out to greet me.
It's been a while. Thank you for taking the time to come.
Though I wasn't busy at all, I kept my response vague. She led me to the living room and served tea and cake. Thinking it would be polite, I asked about Ray's father. He might be at work, but it was worth asking. "Excuse me, is your husband here? If it's not too much trouble, I'd like to greet him."
My husband, we're divorced.
"Oh, I see, sorry."
No, it's fine.
"So, she's raising Ray alone."
He's the only family I have. I can't imagine losing him. That's why, Alex, you saved Ray's life and mine as well.
"No family? What about your parents?" I asked, thinking she might still have them. But then immediately regretted my intrusive question. Everyone has their own family issues. Sorry. Forget that question.
No, it's all right. I haven't seen my parents for a long time, as if they are not around anymore.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Please don't apologize. Today is about expressing my gratitude to you.
Emily placed the handkerchief I gave Ray in front of me. It smelled of fabric softener and was perfectly smooth.
Thank you for the handkerchief.
You cleaned it so nicely.
Look, Alex, look.
Ray suddenly spread out a paper in front of me. It looked like a math test, all answers circled in red, with 100 written under Ray Smith. Ray is in first grade. He has a bright future. A perfect score. That's amazing.
Isn't it?
Sorry, Alex. He's just excited about his first perfect score.
No, it's wonderful. I felt warm and content listening to more stories about Ray's school. It was a rare and meaningful time for me. He rarely talks to children. Time flies when you're having fun, and it is soon evening. As I was about to leave, Ray looked sad.
Will you come again tomorrow?
Ray, Alex has work. Don't be demanding.
Well, I'm actually on leave right now. Kind of.
Oh, I see.
Alex is fired, right?
Ray blurted out the truth.
What?
Actually. I couldn't hide it anymore. I briefly explained my situation. No matter how much I emphasized that it was all for my boss's self-preservation, Emily turned pale.
So, you were fired because you saved Ray.
No, please don't worry about it. I was planning to quit anyway, so it was a good opportunity.
But still.
Emily lowered her gaze.
I'm really sorry. If I had been there to pick him up.
No way. The truck driver was at fault, and you had work, right? Nothing is more important than Ray's life, I said, looking at Ray, who had fallen asleep on the sofa.
He was so excited since this morning, knowing you were coming over.
That's an honor for me. I stood up, trying to alleviate the awkwardness. Emily moved to carry Ray, but I offered to do it instead. I carefully picked him up and carried him to his bedroom, trying not to wake him. Wait, this bed. Ray's bed was from the company I worked for.
Is there something wrong with the bed?
No, I used to work for this bed's manufacturer.
Really?
Yes, I really liked their products. I was drawn to the idea of improving sleep quality and life. The policy has changed recently, but until then, I was really proud of what we made. Oh, did you know I found myself passionately talking about my favorite story from the company? This brand is the most popular in the company. The current president created it for his newborn daughter, wanting her to grow up healthy. It went through several improvements. Employees jokingly call it the doting parent bed, but it's truly a great bed. Normally, babies wake up and cry as soon as they're away from their mother, right? But with this bed, they seem to sleep so peacefully.
Is that so?
Emily's reaction was muted, and she seemed to be looking off into the distance. Maybe my story wasn't that interesting. I got carried away. Well, hearing about the company that made your furniture might not be that exciting. Sorry for the strange story.
No, I can see how much you cared about your company.
After quietly leaving the bedroom so as not to wake Ray, I promised to contact her again and left the apartment. A few days later, having used up my paid leave, I went to my workplace for the final resignation procedure. It was my last day at the office. The president was there for an inspection, causing a bit of a stir.
What are you doing here?
Tompkins spotted me immediately. I hoped to leave without seeing him. I'm here for my final resignation procedure.
What? You haven't quit yet? Just seeing your incompetent face annoys me.
I ignored his comment and was about to walk past, but someone from HR called us.
Tompkins, Summers, the president wants to see you both.
What?
The president? What did you do?
Nothing. I haven't been here. I truly had no idea why we were called together. In the reception room, the president looked serious. As we sat down, he turned to Tompkins.
Is it true that you forced Alex to resign?
Tompkins was caught off guard by such a direct question. Tompkins seemed as surprised as I was. He tried to remain composed as he answered,
No, there must be some mistake. I don't have such authority. He voluntarily submitted his resignation. It stated personal reasons, I believe.
The president then looked at me.
Is that true?
No, I was told I was fired for being late to a meeting and to submit my resignation that day.
That's what I've heard from other employees as well.
I hadn't expected anyone to have looked into it. Tompkins was clearly startled.
Tompkins, while being late is indeed bad and can affect our relationship with clients, and addressing and preventing it is your duty. Why did you tell him he was fired, and did you just lie to me?
He stumbled for words but then lifted his face, seeming to have thought of a rebuttal.
With all due respect, President, it was this guy's fault for being late to the meeting in the first place. Blaming me for his failure is misguided, isn't it?
You knew the reason he was late, right? And yet, you forced him to submit his resignation. Isn't that true?
He said there was a child in danger of an accident, but that's just a made-up excuse.
No, it's not a lie. I really did.
Stop spouting nonsense. Where was this so-called kid anyway? It's just your excuse.
Tompkins yelled, forgetting he was in the presence of the president. Suddenly, the door to the reception room opened, and a woman and a child entered.
What he's saying is true.
I was so surprised that I exclaimed out loud, Emily and Ray.
My child was about to be in a traffic accident, and Alex saved him.
Who are you people? Outsiders, get out!
Tompkins shouted, causing Ray to hide behind his mother in fear. However, it wasn't Emily who retorted, but the president.
Outsiders. Are you calling my daughter and grandson outsiders?
Daughter, I was the first to react. Catching my gaze, Emily gave a wry smile.
I'm sorry for keeping it a secret, Alex.
No, really, it then clicked. The president's last name was also Smith. Emily had mentioned she was divorced, so she must have been using her maiden name.
Yes, I contacted you because you were an employee of my father's company. You saved my son's life and then were forced out by your boss. So
After 10 years, you finally reached out.
10 years. I remembered she had said she was out of touch with her parents, considering them as good as gone.
I couldn't ignore such a story, so I had my employees investigate. They confirmed that you pressured Alex to resign, and that you've been imposing unreasonable quotas on everyone, revealing one problem after another.
This is preposterous. You can't just take action without hearing my side.
Tompkins still tried to resist, but Ray approached and showed his cell phone.
Look, sir.
What's this? You've got 5 minutes to get here, or you're fired, no matter the reason. I don't need incompetents who can't keep time.
Tompkins's angry voice filled the room. That voice, it's from that time.
I always told Ray to record everything for safety.
Ray had realized the seriousness of the accident and had been recording since I returned his phone.
It seems undeniable that you said he was fired, Tompkins. You're saying it yourself.
Cornered by the president's glare, Tompkins finally ran out of excuses.
I'll report on the detailed investigation and the appropriate action to be taken later. Leave now.
The president instructed Tompkins. You exited the room. After he left, the president apologized to me for not being aware of the situation.
Also, Alex, if you're willing, I'd like you to continue working here. Don't worry about Tompkins. Please, share your thoughts with me. Emily scolded me too. She said it's hard to find someone who cares about the company as much as you do, and who's also a person of character. You'll regret losing him, she said.
I just really like our company's beds. Should I say it? I was planning to leave the company anyway. If there's anything I can say now that I couldn't before, I should say it. But to be honest, I'm not very fond of the company's current direction. It feels like we're throwing away our previous experiences and our customers' sentiments in pursuit of profit alone. I don't want to be part of that.
I understand, Alex, but running a company isn't just about ideals. I wish we could continue with the old ways too, but
it's not just an ideal. Emily's home has one of our beds. She bought it, right? The president's eyes widened.
Is that true, Emily?
Yes, Ray sleeps so well in it.
President, you developed that brand with the hope that your daughter would grow up healthy. That sentiment has been passed down to her.
So that's how it was.
It was expensive, especially for a single mother like me, but it was worth it if it helped Ray sleep better.
I want to provide a better life for those who need our beds. Of course, profit is important, but there are people who need our beds. If there's a way to preserve our approach and protect the company, I would like to work on it. After pondering, the president nodded firmly.
All right, I'll appoint you as the project leader.
What? A project leader?
Yes, Tompkins will be demoted regardless. I want you to take over as manager and research the balance between customer needs and pricing in the field.
Yes, sir.
You're right. Focusing solely on growing the company is missing the point. We almost betrayed those who favor our products.
And he looked at Emily and Ray.
I remembered your words about providing a better life for those in need. I created that brand for my awaited daughter, out of sheer love. I wanted her to grow up healthy. Profit was secondary. I nearly forgot those feelings.
I couldn't believe my voice had reached the president. Thanks to Emily and Ray. I was about to thank them when the president addressed Emily.
What's this about being a single mother?
Well,
Didn't you elope with some suspicious guy even though you had a fiancé and got disowned for it?
yes.
Where did he go?
He cheated, so I divorced him. I didn't have the courage to tell you.
Should I even be hearing this? The president sighed deeply.
I told you to stay away from that man.
But it led to Ray's birth, so I don't regret it.
Well, that's true.
It looked like their relationship as father and daughter might be mended. Subsequently, Tompkins's misdeeds came to light. While I was on leave, other employees had become his targets. After learning about my forced resignation, they began recording his words and actions as evidence. Tompkins tried to make excuses, but the evidence was undeniable. He was transferred to customer service, but lacking the skills, he ultimately resigned voluntarily. I managed to reclaim the billion-dollar deal, successfully negotiating it to completion. The president praised me, and we went out for drinks. I was also working on the development of our brand, which was seeing increasing sales without lowering prices.
It's because you believe in and value our products, Alex. Thank you.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
With your management skills, you could be the next president.
No, you're joking.
No, I'm serious.
Should I take this seriously? Whenever I visited the Smith family for advice, Emily assured me, my father doesn't joke about such things. If I'm expected to fulfill such a role, I want to challenge that.
Alex.
What's up, Ray?
Remember when we went shopping together the other day?
Yay.
Well, a kid from my class saw us and said, Ray's dad is so cool.
Oh,
Ray, stop that.
Emily quickly covered Ray's mouth in a panic.
Why can't I say that?
He may not like to be called Dad.
Is that true?
Looking at me with innocent eyes, leaving me unable to say yes or no. Well.
I'd be happy if Alex became my dad. Then we could play every day.
Ray,
To be honest, I had developed feelings for Emily. As I got to know her and Ray, I found her earnestness and the way she cared for Ray truly admirable. I'd be happy to have a son like Ray, I said, taking a chance. Emily blushed and fumbled for words.
Really? Then I'll ask Mom.
Ask.
Do you mind if Alex becomes my dad?
it's not that I mind, but Ray, don't ask such troubling things.
She doesn't mind. I'm quite open to the idea.
Really? Well, I'm somewhat open to it too.
Seemingly not entirely against the idea. Kindness isn't just for others, they say, but I didn't consciously do good deeds. Yet, by holding on to what's important and being honest with people, they truly see you. This is surely important in life. I want to pass on what I've learned to Ray when he's older. I hope he becomes someone who can help others, connect people, and create something valuable.
There's no place for a poor high school grad here.
When I attended a networking event hosted by a client, I was told by a former classmate, a company president's daughter, Samantha, to leave the venue. My stretched patience finally snapped. In front of a crowd, fed up with Samantha's insults directed at me, I simply said before I left, "Understood." As I was about to leave the event, a person with a pale face appeared before me. As a result, Samantha ended up losing her job and family, becoming destitute. My name is Kevin Carter, and I'm 35 years old. I work at Carter Foods as an executive. We're a company that handles a variety of foods, from processed products to bottled water, and we're committed to product development. Due to family issues, I couldn't continue to college and started working at Carter Foods after high school graduation. I've been working for 20 years, and I still find my job enjoyable. In my private life, I married my wife, Emily, whom I met through an acquaintance 2 years ago. We don't have kids yet, but hopefully, in time. I was leading a contented life both at work and at home, but one day I ran into a high school classmate, and that encounter led to an unbelievable turn of events. Ever since I was a kid, I loved researching various things and dreamed of becoming a researcher. Because of that, I studied diligently from elementary school, always maintaining top grades. However, when I was in high school, my mother ran off with her affair partner, leaving my father and me behind. The shock of her leaving drove my father to alcoholism, and he was in and out of hospitals, unable to work. Naturally, college was out of the question for me. My uncle, my dad's brother, supported us with living expenses, so we managed to get by. But I couldn't ask him to cover tuition, so I gave up on college. My uncle told me not to worry, but I couldn't bring myself to depend on him, so I decided to work right after graduating from high school and joined the current company. Back then, it was rare for someone not to go to college, and the fact that I, the top of my class, wasn't going became a hot topic. That's when Samantha, a prominent figure in the class, said to me,
Because you're poor, you're not going to college, right? High school grad, seriously, your life is pretty much over. You've got a dark future ahead.
For some reason, Samantha saw me as an adversary, taunting me every time she saw me. Probably because her father was a company president and she was rich, she found it amusing to mock me for being poor. I thought it was pointless to engage with her, so I kept ignoring her, which she probably didn't like. So, I was teased for being poor all the way until graduation. At the time, not being able to go to college was hard, and her words always made me feel bad. But looking back on it now, I think it was good to end up in such a perfect job even with just a high school diploma. One afternoon, I went with a junior colleague to the Matthews Group for a business negotiation about a new product. While waiting for the representative in the lobby after checking in at the reception, someone called out from behind me,
Isn't that Kevin? No way. You haven't changed at all.
When I turned around, there stood a woman. As I wondered who it was, her face gradually jogged my memory. It was Samantha, my former high school classmate. As soon as she saw me, she started with the pleasantries as if reminiscing, but then quickly began mocking me just like the old days.
What's a lowly high school grad doing here? You couldn't have landed a job at any significant company, could you?
While I was amazed that she hadn't changed at all even as an adult, I asked Samantha if she worked for the Matthews Group.
Well, of course, my dad's the president of the Matthews Group. That makes me the daughter of the president of a top company.
Samantha boasted high and mighty that she was going to be the next president of this company. When I responded with disinterest, she seemed a bit miffed.
As unpleasant as ever. There's no way our company would deal with someone who hires people like you. I'm not being mean, but you'd be better off going home.
Adding that it was a waste of time, Samantha left the company and went somewhere else. She had called me unpleasant, but I thought she was quite the nasty piece herself. When the representative arrived, I decided to proceed to the negotiation. After successfully concluding the negotiation, I sent my subordinate home and returned to the company for the remaining work. While working quietly at the office, my smartphone notification went off. Checking my phone, I had received a direct message on social media. Thinking it was unusual, I checked it, and it was from Samantha. She probably tracked down my account through mutual contacts or friends. Wondering what she wanted, I saw the message was mocking me. I was amazed that she would go as far as to harass me through social media. Thinking it was pointless to engage, I decided to thoroughly ignore Samantha's messages. Then, realizing she was being ignored, she started sending messages and calls through the messaging app, maybe getting my contact from a classmate who knew me. I was annoyed at myself for having the auto-ed feature on. The notification sound was irritating, and she kept sending messages despite me not responding at all. It didn't stop even when I got home, and my phone kept ringing even during dinner with Emily. Emily must have thought it was odd and asked if something happened. So, I told her about today's events and that it had been going on like this for a while.
She sounds like a piece of work. You can't go silent mode because of work, right? Why don't you just turn off notifications for her? If you engage, it might just get worse.
Following Emily's advice, I turned off notifications for Samantha's contact. After that, I wasn't troubled by notification sounds anymore.
By the way, you're going to the networking event too, right, Kevin?
Yo, the chairman can't make it, so I'm planning to go alone. You're going too, right, Emily?
Of course. I even got a new dress for it. Take a look.
Emily showed me the dress with excitement. It was a simple design that suited her well, and I was looking forward to seeing her in it at the event. Messages from Samantha have been coming non-stop since then, but turning off notifications means I'm not bothered by them anymore. However, I didn't read them, thinking it'd just get worse if she knew I've seen them. They're probably full of mockery anyway. I'm tormented by regret for having met Samantha at that time, at that place. Time has passed, and the day of the networking event has arrived. I was more nervous than usual at this gathering of various companies. My company was invited too, and the chairman was supposed to attend, but due to work commitments, I ended up going alone. As I entered the venue and looked around, I recognized someone familiar. They seemed to notice me too and waved over enthusiastically. Just as I was about to head their way, a woman stood in my path. What? Why? It was Samantha who appeared before me. Then, I remembered something. Today's event was hosted by the president of the Matthews Group. Of course, as the president's daughter, Samantha would be there, and my mood instantly dropped.
After all this time ignoring me, who do you think you are? And why are you even here? How did you sneak in?
Samantha glared at me, visibly irritated. She must be pretty upset that I've been ignoring her messages. When I explained that I was invited and attending, Samantha burst out laughing.
As if my dad would never invite a high school grad loser like you. You probably heard about the event and snuck in to save on dinner, right? That's just like something a poor person would do.
Samantha continued to hurl harsh words at me. Even I have my limits. Furious over Samantha's messages and past behavior, I clenched my fists so tightly, trembling with anger.
There's no place for a poor high school grad here.
I had reached my breaking point. In front of everyone, as Samantha directed her insults at me, I simply said, "Understood," and was about to leave when I heard,
"President Kevin."
I saw President Matthews, the president of the Matthews Group, looking pale as he stared at us. He must have witnessed the entire exchange between Samantha and me. He looked like he was about to collapse.
What are you saying, Dad? That this guy is a president? He's just a poor man.
President Matthews interrupted Samantha with a shout.
"Samantha, who do you think you're talking to? Kevin here is the president of Carter Foods, which supplies most of our products. Do you have any idea what would happen to us without Carter Foods products?"
Samantha tried to make excuses, saying, "But the truth is, the Matthews Group runs a nationwide restaurant chain, and our company supplies the food products they sell."
"Aren't you supposed to be part of the executive team? How can you not know this?"
But I just never thought a high school grad from the bottom could be a president. He was so poor in high school.
Indeed, I was admittedly very poor during high school. However, after graduating and joining my uncle's company, Carter Foods, I was able to lead a decent life. My uncle, a bachelor without children, said, "I always thought I'd be a lifelong bachelor. So, I want you to take over the company in the future. Please do your best." He told me this when I joined the company. 3 years after I started working, my father, who had been in and out of the hospital, passed away. After my father's death, my uncle and I underwent an adult adoption, and when I was 25, 10 years ago, I took over the company and became the president.
The high school grad with no prospects.
President Matthews did not miss Samantha's muttering.
You really don't know anything. Since Kevin took over, they've been developing and launching hit products one after another. There's no other genius like him. Some of the products they supply to us are exclusive to Carter Foods.
After taking over from my uncle, I decided to focus on product development, something I always wanted to do since I wanted to be a researcher. As a result, we have been able to create various hit products, some of which are patented. If those products were no longer supplied, it would be the Matthews Group that would be in trouble.
Can you take responsibility if your actions cause us to lose the contract?
Samantha finally seemed to realize she had gone too far and stopped making excuses.
Kevin, I am deeply sorry for my daughter's extremely rude behavior. Please accept my apologies. I will make sure to speak with her, so please don't let this affect our business.
President Matthews repeatedly apologized to me, but Samantha herself just stood there with a clueless expression. She was only watching her father apologize, showing no sign of thinking she was in the wrong at all. I had no intention of ending the business over this, but even so, her attitude was unacceptable. Despite her father humbling himself for her sake, Samantha herself was unmoved. Samantha, your father, the president, is going to such lengths to apologize, and you have nothing to say. Aren't you the one at fault here? I asked incredulously, and Samantha glared at me sharply.
I mean, I didn't know you were the president. If I had known, I wouldn't have done this. It's your fault for not telling me. I'm not in the wrong.
Her refusal to see her own fault, even now, was almost refreshing to me. Her attitude turned President Matthews's face even bluer. Listen, I've been meaning to ask, why are you so fixated on me? You did it in high school, and even now as adults, you send messages on social media. What's your intent? I've always wondered, so I asked Samantha why she's so fixated on me. From the snide remarks during our high school days to the relentless, almost demonic messages she keeps sending through social media, I'm full of questions about what she's aiming for by doing all this. To my surprise, it was President Matthews who reacted more to my words than Samantha, gasping, You've been doing what? Confronted by her father's shocked expression, Samantha awkwardly confessed. Then, Samantha, looking somewhat sheepish, said, I mean, I've hated you since high school. Despite being a nerd, you were adored by everyone. I couldn't stand that you were getting more attention than me, even though I'm a president's daughter. It was all just meant to be a bit of harassment. She pointed at me, crying out hysterically. Stunned by such a trivial reason for her actions, I was left speechless.
To think that my own daughter could be so malicious.
President Matthews, perhaps realizing the extent of his daughter's spitefulness, was holding his head. Feeling the negative atmosphere and the stares from around, I knew I couldn't stay at the event any longer. "Mr. Matthews, I'm sorry, but may I be excused for today?" I conveyed my intention to leave to President Matthews. Then, President Matthews said,
I'm really sorry. I'll come to apologize again later.
President Matthews mentioned like this, looking disappointed. However, Samantha still looked sulky, with a displeased expression on her face. Thinking this just wasn't going to work, I was about to leave the scene when a woman came running up to me.
Mr. Matthews, it seems my husband is leaving, so I'll be heading out as well.
The woman who came over to me was my wife, Emily.
You are, Emily.
President Matthews's face turned even paler, and he muttered Emily's name under his breath. And Samantha's face, which had been sulky until now, also started to turn pale. Executive Emily Carter, the granddaughter of the chairman of our parent company. They froze upon seeing Emily.
It seems you do know who I am. Mr. Matthews, I haven't introduced him to you. This is Kevin Carter, my husband.
Contrary to the two pale faces, Emily introduced me with a beaming smile. My wife and I don't like standing out, so we invited only close family and friends to our wedding in Bali. After returning home, we didn't hold a wedding reception and only reported our marriage to our companies. So, President Matthews probably didn't expect that I was Emily's husband. Realizing I'm her husband, both President Matthews and Samantha looked back and forth between Emily and me in surprise. Our love story is actually deeply connected to my uncle. At the time, my uncle, who was a CEO, was close friends with the chairman of the Matthews Group's parent company, and he was consulted about the chairman's granddaughter who was still single in her late 20s. When asked if he knew any good matches, my uncle suggested, "How about my son? He's 3 years older but a sincere and upstanding young man." He recommended me, over 30 and still single with no girlfriend. The chairman was keen, and before we knew it, discussions between the chairman and my uncle had advanced, and an arranged meeting was set up without our consent. Honestly, both Emily and I were workaholics and not very interested in marriage. But given the business relationship between our companies, we reluctantly agreed to the meeting. Surprisingly, we hit it off despite it being our first encounter. We were amazed at how well we got along. After that, things progressed smoothly, and we moved quickly from dating to marriage. The period from our meeting to marriage was about 6 months. That's how my uncle brought Emily and me together. Moreover, Emily's parents work in different professions and have nothing to do with the Matthews Group. But Emily joined the parent company after graduating from college and is currently working hard as an executive director.
Such a way to speak about my husband, huh? From what I hear, you didn't like him because he was more popular. To harass someone for such a reason. How childish can you be?
Well, that's...
Samantha, confronted by Emily, was pale and seemed unable to find the words to excuse herself.
You haven't shown any sign of apologizing up till now. If you're thinking of excuses, maybe there's something else you should be doing. To think such a person is the future president of a subsidiary. We're really being taken lightly, huh?
With her last words possibly directed at President Matthews, Emily flashed a defiant smile towards him. Like a frog under the glare of a snake, President Matthews began to sweat profusely from his forehead and started shaking uncontrollably.
I'm terribly sorry. I had no idea Kevin was your husband. My deepest apologies.
My husband has nothing to do with this. Mr. Matthews, your daughter's behavior is unreasonable. She cannot be recognized as a candidate for future president.
Emily's stern words made President Matthews tremble in his apologies, as if he was about to prostrate himself on the spot. But Samantha stood there with a pale face, still not uttering a word of apology. Perhaps exasperated by Samantha's attitude, Emily sighed deeply and said, "Even in this situation, not a word of apology, ho, understood. We'll hold a meeting to discuss the future, taking into account the issue of the next president."
What? You can't.
Mr. Matthews, depending on how things go, a dismissal from your position is very much a possibility. So please keep that in mind, okay?
After dropping this bombshell on the Matthewses, she turned to me with her usual adorable face, suggested we leave, and linked arms with me to exit the venue. I couldn't help but glance back at the Matthewses. President Matthews had collapsed on the floor, looking utterly devastated. Meanwhile, Samantha seemed to finally grasp her predicament, exclaiming, "Why me, the president's daughter? This is ridiculous." She was ranting hysterically. To think she still couldn't see herself as at fault. I bid farewell to the venue and left with Emily. Afterward, I heard the social gathering was cancelled. Indeed, continuing under those circumstances would have been impossible. A few days after the commotion, President Matthews visited our company to apologize, and that's when I heard the aftermath. A meeting was held concerning the incident, but somehow the discussion about dismissing President Matthews was postponed. He is competent at his job, which probably played a role in the decision. However, Samantha was dismissed for disciplinary reasons, and her path to becoming the next president was closed, leading to her departure from the company. I was surprised to hear disciplinary dismissal regarding this incident, but it turned out that a company-wide inquiry revealed Samantha's arrogant behavior. She was found to have been pushing her work onto others, being a habitual offender of tardiness and absence without leave. Furthermore, she was discovered to have made personal purchases under the guise of business expenses, leveraging her status as the president's daughter. President Matthews was completely unaware and could only hang his head in disappointment upon realizing just how problematic his daughter had been. Samantha, having to repay the misused funds, ended up in debt and was disowned by President Matthews. She is now juggling multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. President Matthews hoped the hardships would turn her into a decent person, but given how deep-rooted her issues were, that might be difficult. As usual, I've been keeping busy every day. I'm currently in the midst of developing a new product and exploring various possibilities. Amidst all that hustle and bustle, some joyful news reached me. Emily's pregnancy has been confirmed. I was overjoyed, but even more so were my uncle and Emily's grandfather, both shedding tears of happiness. The thought of our family growing fills me with excitement. I'm more motivated than ever to work hard and provide for my family every day.
Repeatedly rejected in job interviews, I was running out of options. In my last life-changing interview, I thought it was all over for me. As I was about to leave the venue, the CEO, who hadn't said a word until then, stopped me.
Where did you get that floral tie?
"Oh, this one. It's, as I replied, the CEO's face turned ghostly pale, leading to an unforeseen twist. My name is David Jones. I lost my mom to sickness as a kid, and since then, it's been just my dad and me. The hardest part of being in a single-parent family was during elementary school. Dad, Sam, gave me all the love of both parents, even taking time off work to attend school events. But I felt embarrassed seeing him as the only dad among moms. Dad, please, you don't have to come to school anymore.
What are you saying? It's a parent's duty to see their child in class.
Being a naturally serious and sincere father, he couldn't understand how I, as a child, was feeling. Annoyed with my father, I started hiding school events from him.
David, isn't it about time for your field trip? I'll take off work to go with you.
They canceled it this year. Don't worry. I lied. On the day of the field trip, I stealthily took a $10 bill from Dad's wallet to buy lunch. But a few days later, after hearing about the trip from a classmate's mom, Dad confronted my lie.
Why did you say the field trip was canceled?
I'm sorry.
What did you do for lunch?
I bought it at the store.
Where did the money come from?
I finally confessed to stealing money from his wallet. Expecting a harsh scolding, I was surprised when Dad silently handed me another $10.
If you stole money, it's because your allowance wasn't enough. That's on me. I'll increase your allowance from now on.
Dad, I won't steal again. I'm sorry, I cried as he gently hugged me. Dad always sought the reasons behind my mistakes before scolding.
It's crucial to clarify the reasons. Once we know why, we can prevent it from happening again.
My respect for Dad, whom I once found annoying, began in middle school. He was busy with work and couldn't attend school events. The end-of-year big cleanup was planned to be carried out by all students, with each class's officers helping, but my father couldn't participate. That night, my father didn't come home, even though he should have finished his overtime work. As the snow began to fall, I took an umbrella and went to the station to pick him up. As I took a shortcut past the middle school, I saw someone rustling around in the dark. When I shone my flashlight, it turned out to be my dad. During a school-wide cleanup that he couldn't attend, I found him at night, cleaning weeds in the schoolyard after work. Seeing my dad diligently fulfilling his duty amidst the falling snow, my heart was overwhelmed with emotion. Dad, you'll catch a cold.
Hey, David, I'll be done soon.
I held an umbrella over my father as he knelt down, pulling weeds. Seeing the clean yard, I felt proud of my dad for the first time. I admired my father. You left for work every morning in a suit? When home alone, I once took his suit out of the dress and tried it on. Among the ties hanging inside, there was one with a floral pattern, his favorite. I once asked my dad, who was wearing a floral tie, as he looked in the mirror. "That tie is really nice, isn't it?"
Yes, it is. I wear this tie only on special days.
"Someday, I want to wear that tie too."
It's too early for you, David. I'll give it to you when you graduate college and start working.
"Really? You promise, right?" "It's a definite promise." He laughed and we made a pinky promise. However, in my second year of middle school, my father fell ill, was hospitalized, and passed away unexpectedly. Though his surgery was successful and he was recovering well, his condition suddenly worsened. Maybe he had a premonition of his death. Before passing, he called me to his hospital room and handed me the floral tie.
Take good care of this tie.
Can I really have it? Well, thank you. Seeing me struggle to tie it properly, he smiled. That night, my father passed away. The floral tie became a keepsake of my father. After his death, I was taken in by my paternal grandparents and started attending school from their house. Maybe because they felt sorry for me losing my mother at a young age, my grandparents really doted on me. I grew really close to my grandparents too. Having lost both my mother and father to illness, I found myself all alone. But thankfully, I was able to get back on my feet thanks to my grandparents' support. They were poor, so I couldn't ask for new gym clothes. My grandmother, skilled in sewing, repaired my torn gym clothes by hand. It was a bit embarrassing, but I wore the patch-covered gym clothes to make her happy.
Doesn't David's gym clothes look weird?
They're patched up. So lame.
The boys in my class made fun of me for wearing a gym clothes full of patches. I became their target, often ambushed on my way home from school.
Hey, David. You can easily shoplift from the convenience store. The old lady has bad eyesight.
Steal something, anything.
But I refused. My father, who lived a life of honesty and integrity, was my pride. I couldn't tarnish that pride.
You insolent jerk.
The boys circled me, ready to throw pinches.
Back off, guys. If you're going to fight, do it one-on-one.
Standing in front of me, blocking the way, was my classmate, Bob. A member of the judo club, he was a school hero who'd even won a county tournament. The boys backed off with wry smiles. Thanks, Bob. After I thanked him, Bob said,
You know, I've always thought you were a great guy, David.
Really? Why?
Wearing that patch gym clothes with such pride. It shows guts.
It's not that ragged.
Oops. Sorry about that.
From then on, Bob and I became best friends. Dad promised to give me his favorite floral tie when I graduate college and get a job. But since I didn't want to be a financial burden to my parents any further, I decided to enter the workforce immediately after graduating from high school. Working at a small-town factory meant no suits or floral ties for me. At the factory, we handled everything from tiny screws to large machinery, working in shifts. During the late shift, I had to work through the night until morning, so I decided to move into the dormitory located behind the factory. Inheriting the sincerity and earnestness from my father, I diligently tackled every small task that came my way.
Having you here, David, has truly been a lifesaver. Work's been going smoother than before, and the factory manager is thrilled.
I was happy to be praised by the older ladies I worked with. I realized that working hard sincerely helps everyone, so I started to put even more effort into my job. 3 years later, I was called into the factory manager's office.
Thanks to your hard work, David, we've got more orders. How about being the supervisor of the administration section?
But I'm only 21. Is that okay?
Age doesn't matter. In the real world, it's all about skills.
So, joining the company right out of high school, I was promoted to the position of foreman at the site in just my 3rd year. But my joy was short-lived. 6 months later, the situation at the small-town factory took a turn. Suddenly, our parent company merged with a large corporation, and a new boss arrived. The manager, named Johnson, constantly bragged about his high educational background and elite status.
Nowadays, small-town factories are creating innovative products that amaze the world. It's no longer the era of hiring only high school graduates.
True to his word, new employees who graduated from university science programs began to join our factory. While Manager Johnson fawned over the employees with college degrees, he blatantly ridiculed high school graduates like me.
Hey David, you've got a decent name, but just a high school diploma. Aren't you embarrassed? Maybe you should change your name.
No, my father gave me this name.
Idiot. You're obviously joking. This is just what high school grads are like.
I'm sorry.
Why are you apologizing? Did you mess up something?
No, it's not like that.
Then no need to apologize. I hate the resentment of high school grads.
This kind of interaction happened daily, and I was fed up. Ever since Director Johnson arrived, the factory's production capacity has significantly declined. When the factory manager scolded him, Johnson took out his frustration on me. He deliberately spilled a box of screws I had packed for shipping.
It's your fault for putting it here. Hey David, pick up the screws. If one is missing, you're fired.
I picked up each screw scattered on the factory floor and repacked them into the cardboard box. But no matter what, I just couldn't find one missing screw. Crawling on the floor, I found it near a drain. Just as I reached out to pick up the screw with a sigh of relief, someone's foot kicked it into a drainage grate. The crucial screw. As I looked up, it was Manager Johnson standing there. I looked up, dejected, and he smirked.
So serious about a single screw. This is why high school grads are ridiculed.
Feeling really irked, I retorted, "With all due respect, manager, isn't seriousness and integrity crucial for work?"
Seriousness and integrity. You won't get ahead with that nowadays. But then again, there's no advancement for high school guys like you anyway.
I barely contained my explosive anger. My clenched fists trembled with anger. The factory manager had assigned a task to all employees to come up with ideas to improve productivity. The ideas generated by each employee were collected by Manager Johnson, who would then present them at a planning meeting. I suggested that valuing seriousness and integrity in workers would boost motivation. My proposal was well received at the planning meeting. However, Manager Johnson claimed my idea as his own, presenting it as if he had thought of it.
Seriousness and integrity, quite a catchy phrase. If we instill this in all employees, productivity will surely increase. Typical of a college graduate. Well done, Manager Johnson.
Thus, my idea was credited to Johnson. Fearing I might expose him, he used a minor mistake as an excuse to try to transfer me to a remote factory.
David, go train in the countryside for a while.
Is it because I'm an eyesore to you?
What do you mean? If you're joking around, I'll fire you.
Understood. I quit. I've had enough of working under a despicable man like you. I confronted Johnson and left the factory. Evicted from the dormitory, I had no choice but to return to my grandparents. They worried about my unemployment, a hard-working kid like you quitting your job. Are you feeling unwell? Don't worry, I'll find another job soon. Not wanting them to worry, I spent my days looking for work. However, finding a job was difficult. I later found out that the interviewer had called my previous workplace, the small town factory, to inquire about the reasons for my resignation. The person who answered the call was Johnson, my former boss. Thanks to being falsely maligned, I didn't get hired. Unaware of this sabotage, I was disheartened by my prolonged unemployment.
Hey, isn't that you, David?
Then one day, I ran into Bob, my old friend from middle school. Bob, is that you? It's been a while.
What's wrong? You don't look too good.
Well, actually, when I confessed I was having trouble finding a job, he patted my shoulder and smiled.
Don't worry. My dad's friend just started a new factory, and they're looking for someone with factory experience. I'll introduce you.
Really? That would be great. Thanks. Bob made a call right there and then, and a week later, I was set to go for an interview at this new factory. On the morning of the interview, I decided to wear my father's suit. Of course, wearing the floral tie. I never had the chance to wear a suit because I worked in the town factory right after graduating school. Seeing me in a suit for the first time, my grandmother sighed.
From the back, you look just like your late father. It suits you well.
This floral tie, it's nice, isn't it? It was my dad's favorite. Wearing the suit, I felt as if my father was with me, and I headed to the interview with confidence. In the waiting room, several other applicants were gathered. According to what I heard, only one person will be hired. Hearing that, even I couldn't help but feel nervous. When my name was called, I walked into a room where Mr. Smith, the president, and 3 HR staff were waiting. After introducing myself, the HR team bombarded me with questions. The hardest moment was explaining why I left my previous job. I was honest about the reasons. I thought to myself, they must have called my old factory and heard all sorts of things from Johnson. This might not work out. It was when I was feeling down and about to leave the room. Mr. Smith, the president, who hadn't said a word until then, stopped me.
Where did you get that floral tie?
It's a keepsake from my late father. Suddenly, Mr. Smith broke down in tears. Surprised, I just stood there. Through his tears, he asked, "Was your dad's name by any chance Sam?" "Yes, Sam, but how do you know that?" I was puzzled about why the president knew my father's name. Mr. Smith, wiping his tears, explained,
That suit and tie were made by my mother for Sam. That floral pattern on the tie is quite unique, so I remember it well.
According to Mr. Smith, the president, my dad, Sam, used to be his subordinate back in the day.
Your dad was a sincere and honest man, someone I, as the president, could really respect. My mother was very fond of Sam.
His mother owned a bespoke suit shop and had gifted a suit to my dad, who always wore worn-out suits.
At that time, there was no tie to go with the suit, so my mother hand-made this tie. She embroidered the floral pattern herself.
Is that so?
When you entered the room in that suit and tie, I thought Sam had come back.
He continued, tears streaming down his face. Mr. Smith, the president, placed great trust in my father's integrity. and they worked together to expand the business.
Sam really liked that tie. Whenever there was an important deal, he always wore that floral tie. It was his lucky tie for big occasions.
Whenever he wore it, we secured contracts. After hearing this, Mr. Smith's mother was overjoyed, and the company thrived. However, one day, the president's mother fell seriously ill and had to be hospitalized. The president, deeply loving his mother, decided to step back from the business to dedicate himself to her care. Without Mr. Smith, my father lost his drive and left the company. After that, they never met again.
I see. Sam passed away from an illness. I wish I could have met him at least once when he was alive.
He always told me to live earnestly and sincerely, and before he passed away, he gave me this tie. Mr. Smith gently stroked the floral tie, his touch filled with reverence. I ended up working under Mr. Smith. Just like the team my dad and the president used to be, the floral tie became my lucky charm for crucial deals, leading each to success. As the new factory grew, I quickly rose to the position of factory manager. Even during important contract presentations, I wore the floral tie. In the meeting room, there was another company from a rival factory. It was at the factory I had resigned from before, and the one presenting was none other than Director Johnson. Johnson approached me and whispered softly in my ear,
"With just a high school education becoming a factory manager, your end is already in sight. You'd be better off running away with your tail between your legs."
As usual, Johnson. When I easily dodged his remark, Johnson returned to his seat with a displeased expression, and then the presentation battle took place. In the end, I won the contract. Seemingly frustrated at losing to me, a high school graduate, Johnson grabbed my shirt, hurled insults at me, and then stormed off. His behavior led to his dismissal from the factory. This bad reputation quickly spread throughout the industry, and the factory's performance began to decline. Ultimately, a year later, the factory was closed. It was a case of poetic justice for the executives who failed to see the true nature of a person like Johnson. As the factory thrived, Mr. Smith's long-ailing mother recovered.
I thought Sam had come to visit,"
she exclaimed, embracing me tearfully.
"Your father was a good and honest man. Keep working hard, just like him."
Yes, I will live honestly and sincerely, in a way that would not bring shame to this tie. Grateful to Mr. Smith, his mother, and Bob, who introduced me to this opportunity, I vowed to continue living earnestly, honoring my father's memory.
A poor single parent is not needed. The bank doesn't have time to deal with poor clients like you. Just go ahead and close your meager accounts.
Mara and her mother sneered at us with a mocking grin. "Mom, let's close the account."
"We'll go to the bank tomorrow and discuss properly closing the account."
As promised, the next day we went to the bank to close the account. My name is Madeline Sulk. I am at 20. I'm working as part of the opening staff at a newly built nursing home, along with my 46-year-old mother. However, my mother's job as a care worker is not her main job. She is the chairperson of the medical welfare group that manages several nursing homes. Currently, she's helping out temporarily at the new nursing home because it's short-staffed until we can gather more care worker applicants. My grandmother initially led this medical welfare group as the chairperson. 5 years ago, when she was 70 years old, she retired due to old age. My mother, who had been the director of one of the nursing homes, took over the chairpersonship following my grandmother's retirement. It's been only 5 years since my mother became the chairperson of the medical welfare group. To support my busy mother, I didn't go to college, but started working on site after high school graduation. While I was busy, I was living fulfilling days. My grandmother founded the medical welfare group at 30 and expanded the business significantly after the introduction of long-term care insurance in 2000. My grandmother, who gained attention in the welfare industry as an accomplished female president, lost my grandfather to illness shortly after giving birth to my mother. My father also passed away when I was young, so our family of 3 women has been supporting each other. Now, I want to expand the business that my grandmother built along with my mother, the current chairperson. With that in mind, I was working hard at the newly established nursing home. One day, I received a postcard at home announcing my alma mater's reunion. Since my mother and I graduated from the same school, we received 2 copies. The postcard, in poppy lettering, read, "All graduates of New Green Girls School, let's gather." "Mom, what's this postcard? It's so colorful!" I exclaimed, snatching it from her hand. "A reunion. You must be 20 years old or older to participate in the reunion. I only graduated from middle school, but I got one too. Well, I'm excited." Our alma mater is a well-known local girls' school, often referred to as a prestigious institution. I entered the middle school because I like my mother's alma mater and cute school uniform. However, the special environment of a girls' school did not suit me, so I went to another high school. Still, I have good friends from those middle school days. I was separated from my friends at a different high school, so I was glad to see them at the reunion. But my mother seems to be different.
If you want to go, then go ahead. I won't be attending.
I've never seen you attend a reunion. This year, I'll be there too. Let's go together.
I'm not going. I don't have a single good memory from my school days.
She looked so downcast that I became worried and peered into her face. "What's wrong with you? Did something bad happen?"
Well, yeah, but it's all in the distant past.
As her daughter, I shouldn't know about any bad experiences my mother had in high school. And she wouldn't be complaining to me now. I thought it unnecessary to ask her out, but I couldn't help expressing my concern. If there's someone nasty, you should just fight back. I hate to see you carrying such a painful past alone.
Fight back? No, that's just unthinkable.
I gave my mother a teasing smile as she looked at me in surprise. Maybe fight back was exaggerated, but don't you wonder, maybe the person who was mean to you back then is having a hard time now, or the one who bragged about being stylish has gained a lot of weight. She probably wondered why I bother confirming such a thing. My mother frowned at first, but then her expression lightened.
You're right, Madeline. I am a bit curious about what that girl is doing now. I wonder if she's still arrogant and has built her family with that attitude.
Mom, you're the chairperson of the medical welfare group now. You've grown a lot since high school, so be more confident. Your situation is totally different from when you were troubled by nasty classmates. Hearing my words, my mother's face brightened.
Yes, it's been 28 years since those days. I shouldn't be tied down by the past forever.
So she decided to go to the reunion. I'll be with you, so I'll protect you if anything happens.
Thank you. Let's go shopping for reunion outfits on our next day off.
And so, both my mother and I decided to attend the reunion. Despite what I said to Mother, there was someone I didn't want to see. She is Mara Norwood. She was a wealthy family, her grandfather a bank executive and her father a regional bank president. Mara would approach classmates who seemed weaker than herself, make them her followers, or look down on them while endlessly boasting about herself. She was nicknamed Princess, and some classmates clearly avoided her. I treated Mara normally, not overly submissive, but this seemed to irritate her. She has been looking for a topic and talking to me in a condescending attitude.
That pencil case looks pretty cheap. Where did you buy it? How much was it?
At a store near the station for $3.
What? $3? I never knew there were pencil cases that cheap. Mine is a designer goods. Daddy bought it for $200.
While saying this, Mara once flaunted her expensive pencil case in front of me.
That's nice.
I responded with a wry smile, and Mara sneered, saying,
I heard from my mom that you're from a single-parent family, right? It must be tough without a dad, having to use a $3 pencil case. So, what does your mom do?
She works at a nursing home.
At a nursing home. Taking care of old men and women, right? I can't believe people do such a dirty and smelly job.
I can't forget the scornful look Mara gave me at that moment.
Oh yeah, your mother only has jobs people don't do, because your family is poor.
Nursing is a tough but necessary job, and I respect my grandmother and mother who find their calling in it. Doesn't Mara ever think that she or her family might need such care when they get old? From that day, I stopped interacting with Mara. Then, other classmates began to speak unkind words to me.
That girl, she doesn't have a father, right? She's so poor. She can't buy what she wants. And her mom does that dirty and smelly job.
Mara must have told the other classmates about me being raised by a single parent. Some friends I thought were good friends stopped talking to me because they were worried about Mara's eyes. On the other hand, people who didn't think well of her told me a lot of bad things about her and asked me to agree. You think so, don't you? Tired of this girl group dynamic, I decided to go to a different high school. I never told my busy mother about this until now. And then, on the day of the reunion, I took a deep breath with my mother before entering the venue. The reunion was a standing-up party, but tables were organized by age group. My mother and I headed to our respective tables. My mother seemed to have met a friend right away, saying, "Long time no see. How have you been? It's been a while." "I'm good, but work has been busy and tiring lately." Her voice sounded happy. I was glad we came together. As I approached my table, I heard a shrill woman's voice.
I thought there was a poorly dressed woman here, and it was you.
I turned to look at someone's loud voice in surprise and found my mother tangled with a woman in a fancy dress. One of Mom's friends arguing in her defense.
Everyone has changed since then.
Exactly. Looking down on people and laughing is so immature.
The woman looked at me as I ran to my mother and said,
"Oh, the cheeky daughter is here too."
I saw the woman up close and knew immediately who she was. It was Mara's mother. I had heard that Mara's mother was an alumna, but I never realized she was my mother's classmate. Then Mara, resembling her mother, approached me.
Wow, Madeline, you only finished middle school. How could you attend? Did you pay the reunion fee?
Mara said with a grin. Her mother chimed in.
It's such a disgrace when poor people like you ruin a glamorous event.
As I bit my lip in frustration, my mother boldly retorted.
Enough with the condescension. It's been 28 years since high school. We've all worked hard and built our lives. which are completely different now. Besides, I am a client at your bank, Kate.
As soon as they heard my mother's words, Mara and her mother started laughing.
What? A poor single parent is a client at our bank. Don't make me laugh. How much have you deposited? A few $1,000s, or just a few hundred?
Without bothering us, Mara started talking, but I couldn't believe her words.
A poor single parent is not needed. The bank doesn't have time to deal with poor clients like you. Just go ahead and close your meager accounts.
The friends and classmates around were shocked by the outrageous behavior of Mara and her mother. Angered by their arrogance, I impulsively said to Mom, "Let's close the account."
Oh, your daughter is very understanding.
Mara's mother looked down on me and smiled invincibly. We don't want to deposit our money in the bank where people judge others based on their family situation, I stated firmly, and Mara and her mother looked at each other and burst into laughter again.
That's right. Poor people should hold on to every penny they have, right?
My mother sighed at their continued laughter and said, "Tomorrow, we'll go to the bank to discuss closing the account," but it seemed they weren't listening. We briefly greeted our close friends and left the reunion early to talk about our school days over dinner. After my mother contacted the bank the next day, we both went there. We met with the bank representative and the branch manager, as well as Mara's father, who is the president of the regional bank.
I am terribly sorry for the rude behavior of my wife and daughter. I will make sure to speak to them firmly, so please reconsider closing the account.
When the president said that, 3 men also begged us. Scolding them is not the point, I said with a sigh, pulling out my phone and placing it on the reception desk.
What? A poor single parent is a client at our bank. Don't make me laugh. How much have you deposited? A few $1,000s, or just a few hundred?
A poor single parent is not needed. The bank doesn't have time to deal with poor clients like you. Just go ahead and close your meager accounts.
The phone played the recording of Mara and Kate mocking words from the previous day. Hearing the audio, the bank president's face turned even paler.
After being treated like this by Kate and Mara, we cannot continue our business with your bank.
However, our families have been in business since your grandmother started her company.
The president pleaded, and my mother calmly replied,
Sure, and if my mother didn't have a close relationship with you guys, I would have canceled earlier, because I was harassed a lot by Kate when I was a student.
I had heard about Mom's school experiences during our dinner the night before, and the harassment from Kate mirrored Mara's behavior towards me. It was truly a case of like mother, like daughter. It was clear why Mother had been reluctant to attend the reunion.
We wanted an apology from them, not just from you.
Well, my wife and daughter are a bit difficult.
The president probably felt that having Kate and Maria in this discussion would be even more troublesome. He seemed to be looking for a way to calm the situation without escalating it further. At that moment, the reception room door swung open.
How dare you record my voice? That's sneaky.
What are you going to do with it? Go to a lawyer or the police.
Both of you, I told you not to come in. Stay outside.
The bank president hastily tried to shoo them away, but my mother told him,
There's no need to send them out. I wanted to hear directly from them.
The bank president reluctantly let them stay.
As if it matters if a poor single parent closes their account. Our bank gains nothing. This meeting is a waste of time.
Why does Dad apologize to these people? Just go ahead and close the account.
The president hastily stopped Kate from criticizing my mother as a poor single parent.
Do you know who this person is? She's the chairperson of that medical welfare group, our bank's top client.
After the president shouted at them, "I am very sorry that my wife and daughter are so ignorant and have been so rude." The president urged them to apologize to me and my mother. They didn't even understand why they were being scolded.
Do you two know at Medical Welfare Group, which I run?
My mother asked, and Kate made an annoyed face.
A hospital. So you're bragging because you're the chairperson.
Hearing this, I was astonished at her ignorance, and my mother looked appalled.
It's not a hospital, but a corporation managing 80 care facilities nationwide. Our corporation's funds, totaling $200 million, are all deposited in this bank. We came here to close all those accounts.
My mother explained, but Kate seemed to catch only parts of the conversation. Mara looked utterly confused.
$200 million. But how? You're just a poor single parent.
Next to the dumbfounded Kate, the president looked like he was about to cry.
That's why I've been saying she's our most important client. If she closes her account, we lose $200 million in deposits, which would be a massive loss. And if everyone from a medical welfare group closes their accounts, the damage will be unimaginable.
What? That's really bad.
Have you just realized that now?
What? What have we done?
Finally grasping the gravity of the situation, Kate and Mara's complexions changed as if they were about to faint. Just then, a bank employee knocked on the door. A flustered bank employee was whispering something to the bank president.
No way. This is the end.
As the president collapsed to his knees in shock, Mara panicked.
Dad, what's wrong?
The employee then spoke up.
Some individuals claiming to be alumni of New Green Girls School have been calling to discuss closing their accounts.
Hearing this, Kate and Mara hurried out of the reception room. The trouble seemed far from us now.
Kate and Mara looked down on me as a poor single parent, without any sign of remorse. The president didn't show any sincere apology or effort. We cannot trust such a bank. Please proceed with closing our accounts immediately.
Yes. I'm terribly sorry. We'll start the account closure process right away.
Overwhelmed by my mother's sword fight, the president couldn't hide his agitation and ordered the branch manager to prepare documents. I was horrified to think that I had ever deposited important funds in such a sloppy bank. As we left the reception room after finalizing the account closure, we saw alumni from yesterday's reunion confronting Kate and Mara.
In high school, we were too scared to oppose Kate, but things are different now.
I run a company and have many business contacts. I've already advised them against using this bank.
Though we couldn't see Kate and Mara in the crowd, their apologies were audible. A friend noticed my mother and rushed over.
Sorry about yesterday. We couldn't stand up to Kate when she was so horrible to you.
It wasn't just yesterday. We've always been too scared to speak up against Kate in high school.
My mother had tears in her eyes when she saw a friend who cared and apologized.
It's not your fault. I've always been too scared of Kate, too.
This incident seemed to deepen the friendship between my mother and her friends. The classmates who had been afraid to speak up against Kate finally found her behavior intolerable after her remarks yesterday.
If you have time to apologize profusely, just go ahead and close my account.
Please proceed with closing the accounts of these people.
Mara and Kate said this and explained it to the bank employees, but they looked very bothered. The process was slow, and the two sat in discomfort for a long time. Afterward, the bank, having lost many customers, decided to change its president. The president's wife, Kate, and their daughter, Mara, who had lived arrogantly surrounded by followers, found themselves alone. Despite the loss of the main breadwinner's job, Mara and Kate's spending habits remained unchanged, leading to financial difficulties. The former president had long been in leadership. Mara had no work or household skills, and Kate had never even held a part-time job. The three couldn't find a decent job. Even the jobs they found ended quickly in termination. They even came to the nursing home where I work for a job interview. Caregiving jobs are short-staffed, so we don't reject applicants unless something happens.
I heard you would hire someone my age. Please, give me a job.
Please, we'll do anything. Just give us work.
Please, we're struggling.
But of course, my mother's response was,
"We cannot hire those who looked down on caregiving work."
We turned away Mara and Kate, who left dejectedly. Later, Kate became reclusive. The former president developed dementia, and Mara dropped out of college to care for them both. Sometime after hearing these rumors, a gaunt Mary appeared before me.
I apologize for the past. I'm sorry. Please forgive my ignorance. I didn't understand how hard caregiving work is. It's so challenging even with my own parents, and now I greatly respect those who can care for others in the caregiving profession.
But it was too late for such realizations. If you and your family had realized this earlier, you wouldn't be in this predicament and could have enjoyed your later years in a luxury nursing facility. Upon hearing this, Mara broke down in tears in public. A year after our last meeting, there was an inquiry from someone seeking a place in the nursing home. Wait, Kate Norwood, could it be? To my surprise, the application confirmed it was indeed Kate seeking admission. When I saw Kate for the first time in a year, she looked old enough to be a different person. But even more unusual was her attendant, Mara. She appeared so aged beyond her 20s that one probably wouldn't recognize her if I saw her on the street. Facing such a tragic figure, I had to deliver the harsh truth. You're looking for a place to stay, but we currently have no vacancies, and there's a long waiting list, so immediate admission is difficult. Mara's eyes widened at my words. Her eyes were as if tears were falling.
Can't you make an exception? My mother's condition is worsening faster than my father's. She's started wandering, and I can't manage alone.
Mara's tears overflowed as she described her dire situation. But my answer remained firm. There's nothing we can do. Mara hung her head and left with Kate, who was speaking incomprehensibly. That was the last time I was involved with the Norwood family. Meanwhile, my mother and I continue to work hard at the medical welfare group and the understaffed nursing home. To support my mother, I am working hard as a staff member at the nursing home today as well. I am striving for the day I can succeed her as the chairperson, diligently focusing on the tasks at hand.
For tomorrow's wedding, the gift should be $10,000. If that's too much, don't bother coming.
The arrogant sales director, Mark, declared in front of all the employees. As everyone was taken aback, he was the only one laughing with delight.
If you bring $10,000, I might at least get you a seat in the corner,
Mark said, pointing at me and sneering. However, Mark had no idea that he would be utterly embarrassed on what was supposed to be the best day of his life. My name is Chris. I'm a sales manager at a well-established company in town called Assassin Trading, which mainly deals with seafood. Though not large, SSN Trading has grown to be a trusted brand by selecting fresh, seasonal seafood, cutting unnecessary costs, and providing safe and affordable products to consumers' tables. I was born and raised near the fishing port, so I've always loved seafood. That's why I was thrilled when I got a job at SSN Trading, thinking I could eat all the seafood I wanted, a naive thought of my younger self. But once I started working, there was so much to learn that I felt overwhelmed. Besides knowledge of seafood, I had to analyze distribution channels and market needs, and quickly identify what the market demanded. However, remembering how happy I was as a boy when delicious fish was on the table, I worked hard to provide fresh products so that children would come to love fish. Lately, I hear that not only children who dislike fish because of the bones, but also many adults feel the same way. Therefore, we've been making efforts to process fish so it can be enjoyed easily, without much preparation, like deboning. As I was busily working, 18 years had passed since I joined a company. During this time, I married a college classmate, and we had 2 children, now in middle and elementary school. They are still young but have started to say cheeky things, making me deeply feel their growth. I became the head of the sales department, with more subordinates and responsibilities, but I found it fulfilling. However, dark clouds began to loom with the arrival of one person. His name is Mark. He was newly appointed as the sales director.
I'm Mark, the new sales director at SSN Trading.
I had heard that the new director was a talented individual poached from a major trading company, but when I saw Mark on his first day at work, I couldn't believe my eyes. Mark was my senior in high school, a tall, handsome, and popular student 2 years ahead of me. He was so popular that there was even a fan club at the nearby girls' high school. I have an older sister, Anne, who seemed to have liked Mark back then. Looking back, it was more like admiration than a crush, similar to how girls scream for their idols, feeling happy just watching from afar. Anne wasn't very conspicuous, but she was pretty and quietly popular among the boys. Many classmates asked me, "Introduce your sister to me." As I didn't want to share my kind sister, I always refused outright. However, Anne happily told me one summer break that she had started dating Mark. I felt I had to accept it since I knew she had liked him for a long time. At first, Anne seemed happy every day, but gradually she became withdrawn and showed a gloomy expression. When I asked what was wrong, it turned out that Mark had been pressuring her and started to verbally abuse and ignore her when she refused. Anne couldn't stand such treatment, and when she talked about breaking up, Mark would suddenly become kind again, repeating the cycle, as she told me in tears. For Anne, who was having her first boyfriend experience, Mark gradually became a frightening figure. After repeated incidents, and reached her breaking point. She told me she would definitely break up with him, left the house, and returned home in the middle of the night, looking distraught. To my shocked parents and me, Anne said, "I just tripped. It's nothing," and locked herself in her room. Since then, she stopped going to school. I thought something must have happened with Mark, but Anne stubbornly kept silent, leaving me powerless. At school, Mark remained popular and trusted by teachers, acting as if nothing was wrong. It seemed like Mark had kept his relationship within a secret, and no one connected her absence from school to him.
Hey, Mark. I'm Chris, Anne's brother. Do you know she's been missing school?
One day, unable to hold back any longer, I confronted Mark when he was alone.
And, right? Oh yeah, I hung out with her a few times. What about her?
His usual friendly demeanor changed to a cold expression. I was speechless at his intimidating stance.
You know, I don't know what you've heard, but there are lots of girls who fantasize about being with me. So, you're saying your sister's absence is my fault?
Mark looked down on me with disdain.
Let me be clear, it's annoying. Tell that girl and not to flatter herself thinking she's in my league. And thinking she can mock me? She's way out of her depth.
Oh, I knew it.
Flustered, I tried to respond, but Mark brushed me off and pushed me aside.
Stop with the baseless accusations. I have nothing to do with it. Got it? Don't you dare spread rumors about me.
He kicked sand at me and walked away quickly, and stayed secluded for about 3 months, but eventually went to recuperate at our grandparents' place in the countryside on our parents' advice. As she left, looking much thinner but smiling kindly, she said to me, "Take care, don't overdo it." Afterward, Anne seemed to benefit from the peaceful rural life, graduated from a different high school, and went on to become a kindergarten teacher. She remained single, brushing off questions about marriage with a smile, saying she was too busy with the kids. Though I never interfere in Anne's choices, part of me blames Mark for her situation. Facing Mark with these bitter memories made it hard for me to stay calm. But it was already 25 years ago. Dwelling on the past seemed pointless. Raising a fuss wouldn't make Anne happy. And Mark probably didn't even remember me. With that realization, I closed off my feelings.
Let's continue to grow assistant trading together.
Mark said, oblivious to my thoughts.
Hey, Chris. A moment.
Again. Reluctantly, I approached Mark. You called Mark. Standing at his desk, he thrust some documents at me.
Look. How many times do I have to say it? Did you follow my instructions? Where's the memo I gave you?
Here's a memo, but as I've said several times, your instructions are impractical. Mark became visibly angry, his eyes narrowing.
What do you mean impractical?
We can't process the products on that schedule.
So, push the factory to make it work?
I sighed inwardly but patiently responded. Sorry, but forcing the issue would affect future transactions. It goes against our president's policy of valuing our staff. I hope you can approve my proposal instead. Mentioning the president, Mark reluctantly nodded and stamped his approval. I just can't understand this laid-back company. If everyone did as I say, we'd perform better. Mumbling complaints, Mark let me go. I returned to my desk. Sensing Mark's lingering arrogance from his time at a larger company, even over something as simple as a quote, he also seemed to look down on other departments. Meeting with the marketing department, they should just give our sales department the information we want, he would say, often making derogatory comments. At first glance, Mark, with his pleasant presence and a touch of maturity, quickly became the favorite among the female staff. Rumors that he was divorced and now single started circulating, and some female employees were quite taken with him. However, his attitude and arrogance towards subordinates began to show, leading most people, aside from a few women, to start keeping their distance.
Why did the higher-ups even bring someone like him?
Asked my subordinate, Kevin, as he approached me during a break. Kevin is a handsome 30-year-old guy, quite talented too. He can be a bit blunt, but he knows how to act appropriately, so he's never caused any trouble. Since he was assigned to the sales department, I've been his mentor, so he's pretty close to me. That's why he's quite frank when it's just the two of us. I guess in big companies, even colleagues compete fiercely for promotions, and there are still clients who will listen just because of the company's name, so maybe he can't shake off those negotiation habits. I mused, sipping my coffee, feeling fed up as I remembered the snide remarks Mark had just made. Honestly, seeing Mark's smug face reminds me of how he looked down on me 25 years ago, and it's unpleasant.
But it's always the same with him, isn't it? His attitude towards you earlier was frankly obnoxious. No one's going to follow a leader like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry you have to see that. But Kevin, remember, Mark is our boss. We can't just say anything, I said, while internally agreeing with him. If it really comes down to it, tell me. Mediating between subordinates and superiors is part of my job as middle management. At this, Kevin chuckled.
If I had a boss like you, Chris, I'd be happy to follow. Sorry, I went too far. Don't worry, I won't snap at Mark.
That's good. I want the younger staff to work without being bothered by such things, I replied, smiling back at Kevin.
What are you talking about? You're still young, Chris.
Young, huh? I said, comforted by Kevin's smile, and lightly scolded him.
Chris, did you hear? Mark is getting married.
One day, Kevin came to report to me as soon as he arrived at work. Really? Well, that's good news.
Aren't you surprised?
Kevin seemed a bit deflated by my response. Well, Mark is single, right? So, no big deal.
That is true.
As Kevin and I entered the department, it was buzzing with talk about the news. Apparently, Mark's fiancée is 18 years younger and a receptionist at a major company he used to work with. Also, she is a beautiful woman from a wealthy family. Mark, with his experienced charm, completely won her over.
Her parents were worried about him being divorced, but he managed to persuade them quite forcefully. Well, Mark is a good-looking guy, with that Mitch your man vibe.
Who got all this information? That's some impressive investigative work, I said, amused by Kevin's eager report. Later, when Mark arrived at work, someone cheerfully congratulated him, and he smiled shyly.
Oh, you all know already. It feels a bit embarrassing.
The sales department, usually tense, was filled with an unusually relaxed atmosphere.
The wedding is in a month. I'll send out the invitations later. I'd love for you all to come.
Applause broke out, and someone whistled cheerfully.
Mark's in a good mood, isn't he? Hey, Chris, you look a bit stern. What's up?
Oh, I didn't mean to. Just lost in thought, I managed to say to Kevin, but inside, I couldn't feel at ease. Mark's happy face and my sister's image overlapped in my mind. I had thought I'd put those feelings aside, but I couldn't bring myself to genuinely congratulate him.
Taking a break, Chris?
3 weeks after hearing about the wedding and just a week before the ceremony, I ran into Mark taking a break. Hi, Mark. I greeted politely, then went to buy a coffee, intending to leave right after.
Wait, Chris. You haven't congratulated me yet, have you?
Mark's words carried a faint malice, making me turn around. My apologies. Congratulations on your upcoming marriage. As I said politely, Mark burst into laughter.
I can understand your reluctance.
He looks at me with the same condescending gaze he had 25 years ago.
You're Anne's brother? Right. The one who confronted me back then.
You remembered that, I managed to say, feeling my face contort.
To be honest, I had forgotten, but I had to sort things out when I heard my future in-laws were doing some checking. Of course, I've left no evidence of anything incriminating. I wouldn't make such a blunder.
He leaned in closer, peering at my face.
I recalled it then, matching the brat from my memory with your face.
Mark glanced around, making sure no one was listening.
Good thing Anne didn't make a fuss back then. I've made it clear to her how embarrassing it would be for her if she did. No evidence, after all.
Seeing my pale face seemed to amuse him greatly.
It's been 25 years. But if you try anything funny, I'll spread embarrassing photos of Anne online. I've been keeping tabs on you and Anne, knowing you must resent me. Anne's a kindergarten teacher now, isn't she? Just remember, if you start anything, I'll spread her past all over the internet. Don't get any weird ideas.
His vile threat made me feel nauseous. Mark evidently pleased with his dominance. Mark smirks.
Listen, don't interfere with me. And keep in mind, you'd better do as I say, and take good care of your precious sister.
With that, he walked away, laughing. What a jerk. He hasn't changed at all. Anger trembled through me as I muttered to myself. The day before the wedding, an upbeat Mark addressed the gathered employees at the morning meeting.
Tomorrow's the big day for my wedding. Make sure you all come. No excuses. That's an order from your director.
Initially, there were chuckles, but the room fell silent as he continued.
Each of you should bring at least $500 as a gift. Consider it a small token of thanks for all I've done for you.
The employees exchanged looks and murmured among themselves. Unfazed, Mark went on.
Being adored by my subordinates will certainly raise my stock in my future in-law's eyes. Got it? And Chris?
He suddenly called me out.
I'm taking special care of you. So?
He is staring at me mockingly.
For the wedding, I expect a gift of $10,000 from you. If that's too much, don't bother coming.
That's what he said.
What? $10,000?
The announcement left everyone in disbelief, with Mark laughing at their confusion.
If you bring $10,000, I might at least get you a seat in the corner.
He continued taunting with a look of superiority.
You got that, Chris?
He said meaningfully before ending the meeting with dismissed.
Chris, are you okay?
Kevin rushed over, placing a hand on my shoulder. Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks. I whispered, fighting the urge to scream in anger. On the day of Mark's wedding, I was relaxing at home.
Chris, your son really catches on quick.
Kevin remarked, impressed after teaching my middle school son chess. Kevin, I didn't know chess was one of your hobbies. Quite the sophisticated pastime. What, are you some kind of rich kid? I teased as I handed him a coffee, and he grinned in response. Then my phone rang. Who is it? I looked at the screen. It was Mark. I silently showed it to Kevin.
Hello. Hey, what's the meaning of this? What's going on?
Mark was yelling from the other end. Isn't this the man of the hour, the groom? Shouldn't you be in the middle of your reception right now? What are you calling me? Is everything all right? I replied mockingly, and I could almost hear Mark grinding his teeth.
Not a single one of my subordinates has shown up. Did you tell everyone not to come or what?
Mark's voice was filled with anger and frustration. Oh, is that so? No one showed up. I feigned surprise. And Kevin, hearing everything, laughed silently next to me.
Stop acting so surprised. The reception started, and no one from my department has arrived. The president and the bride's parents are demanding explanations.
I forgot the president was the matchmaker. I recalled the president's energetic face and felt a bit guilty for putting him in such a position.
Yesterday, I left early for today's event, and you must have led everyone astray after I left. You've really smeared my name.
Mark hissed threateningly.
You know what you did, opposing me? I'll spill everything about Anne's past to her kindergarten, making her wish she had stayed hidden at home. Having a cheeky brother like you is a sin in itself for Anne.
The call then ended abruptly. Did you get that recorded? I asked Kevin, who winked and stood up.
Got it all. Let's go.
Kevin and I arrived at Mark's wedding venue. The reception should have been lively by now, but the place seemed eerily quiet.
Excuse me, are you gentlemen from the groom's company?
A staff member approached us as we arrived. Yes, well. I showed our invitation, and the staff member looked relieved.
Right this way, please.
As we entered, everyone inside turned to look at us.
Wow, the pressure's intense.
Kevin whispered behind me. The atmosphere in the venue was strange. The bride's side was filled, but the seats for the groom's side, except for what appeared to be close relatives, were empty. The bride and groom looked tense, and even the president at the matchmaker's table seemed uncomfortable. The air was filled with an awkward silence as everyone quietly ate their meals.
Chris.
Mark spotted me, stood up from his seat, and shouted. He was in a white tuxedo but looked pale. I apologize for being late despite your kind invitation today. I announced loudly enough for the whole venue to hear. The MC, relieved, said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the colleagues of the groom have just arrived," and the other guests looked somewhat relieved. But their puzzled expressions returned as they realized it was just Kevin and me.
Chris, Kevin, I'm glad you could make it.
Mark approached us with a forced smile, trying to hide his unease. When he got close, Mark lowered his voice and said hurriedly,
"Just you two. Where are the others?"
Mark, I'm so sorry.
Kevin suddenly exclaimed loudly and apologized deeply.
Kevin, what? Are you apologizing for being late?
Mark asked, surprised. Instead of answering Mark, Kevin addressed the guests loudly.
Though we were invited, the subordinates couldn't possibly arrange the $500 gift that Mr. Mark demanded, so they regretfully had to abstain from attending.
The venue buzzed with murmurs. Kevin continued.
It would be one thing if he had been a long-standing figure in our lives, but given our brief acquaintance of just 6 months and the numerous unpleasant and troubling incidents at work, no one wants to give him $500 just because he's looked after us.
What? What are you saying?
Mark turned pale and flustered, while Kevin calmly surveyed the room, his confidence contrasting starkly with Mark's agitation. The guests whispered and nodded in agreement. I was also ordered to give a gift of $10,000, which I couldn't afford. I was told it was okay not to attend if I couldn't pay, but I couldn't just miss it without greeting. So here I am.
Hey, Chris. Be quiet.
Mark tried desperately to silence me as I raised my voice.
What's going on, Mark?
The president had quietly approached and interjected.
President.
Mark literally jumped, turning to face him.
No, it's just some misunderstanding. A surprise I wasn't expecting.
Mark said with a forced smile, trying to cover up.
It's no misunderstanding. Look.
Kevin then showed his smartphone, playing Mark's voice from the previous day's morning meeting.
No, this is wrong, sir. I was just a bit overexcited about the wedding. It was meant as a joke.
What's this special treatment you mentioned to Chris?
The president cut in, stopping Mark's excuses.
Well, it's just a misunderstanding.
Mark stuttered, his face alternating between shades of pale and red in his fluster. Then the bride's father approached and confronted Mark.
Mark, can you explain this? Even if you say it was a joke, it seems the employees didn't take it that way. Doesn't that indicate a lack of trust between you and your team?
Turning to Kevin, he asked.
Right, Kevin?
Yes, Uncle, exactly.
What, Kevin? Are you related?
Mark exclaimed in shock. I had only found out yesterday, but Kevin is a distant relative of Mark's fiancée, Violet, coming from a prominent family himself, which explained his aristocratic hobby of chess.
I was surprised too when I heard Violet was marrying Mark. I knew they were each getting married, but didn't know to whom until later. I had suspected when I heard about Mark's fiancée's profile that it might be Violet.
Violet is the name of the bride.
At first, I thought Violet's infatuation with Mark, despite his arrogance, was understandable since he's handsome.
Kevin's face darkened as he continued.
But as evident from his earlier remarks, Mark looks down on people without remorse and can act despicably. Therefore, I must say I can support this marriage. Violet, I think you should reconsider.
Kevin addressed the pale bride, who quietly nodded, tears in her eyes.
Now, wait a minute. This is outrageous. Do you know how much I've invested in this?
Mark's outburst was quickly silenced by the cold stares from around the room.
So, you spend a fortune to keep her and then forced your subordinates to cough up hefty gifts to recoup your expenses.
The president approached Mark with a half smile, his cheek twitching.
No, that wasn't my intention. I just thought a lady from a wealthy family would need appropriate gifts and events.
As Mark recoiled under the president's pressure, the bride's father interjected.
Oh, so you're saying my daughter is a gold digger?
No, not at all. Please calm down.
Don't you dare to say that.
The bride's father exploded, and the situation escalated quickly. Staff rushed to restrain him as he lunged at Mark. The bride's mother, holding the shocked bride, moved with Mark, the president, Kevin, and me to a side room.
Please inform everyone in the venue that we'll continue with the meal.
The president instructed his wife before leaving us.
Now, Kevin, you made some serious accusations about Mark's character earlier. Could you elaborate? It might be important for the bride and her parents to reconsider this marriage.
The president said, looking intently at the subdued Mark.
Yes, but I need Chris's permission first.
Chris's permission?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kevin. I'm okay with it, I said, nodding firmly. After asking the staff to leave, we sat down around the table.
Let me tell you, recently, I was hiding because my phone was acting up in the break room and Mark came in. I didn't want to be caught slacking off, so I hid.
Kevin had accidentally overheard Mark threatening me about my sister in the past.
Wait, you were there at that time?
Mark stood up abruptly, only to be shoved back down by the president and the bride's father.
Mark was in a good mood, humming to himself, but then he started harassing Chris when he arrived. I always hated how he treated Chris. I was recording it, thinking it might be useful to report to the company, but then the conversation took a strange turn.
Kevin continued, playing the recording of that conversation.
Stop it.
Mark jumped up again but was quickly restrained.
Chris, are you sure? This will expose your sister's shame.
I closed my eyes, remaining silent as Mark yelled at me.
So, 25 years ago, Mark did something to Chris's sister.
Yes, and he threatened that if I revealed it, he would harm my sister again.
And from this recording, it seems he might have done other terrible things.
Yes, probably similar actions. I couldn't stand him getting away with deceiving his fiancée and her family. But I was also torn about protecting my sister until Kevin told me about this recording and gathered testimonies of his misdeeds. All eyes turned to Kevin.
I wanted to confront Mark immediately, but I thought he would just run away. So, I used my family's resources to investigate Mark's ex-wife and other women associated with him.
The result was indeed terrible. The investigation uncovered that the ex-wife, whom Mark had slandered as a spendthrift who neglected household duties, was actually the victim of Mark's financial exploitation. Despite her reputation being tarnished and being forced to pay alimony, she lived reclusively after the divorce. Many women had suffered from Mark's exploitation and, despite their complaints, were discredited due to Mark's manipulative charm. A woman who showed us her still healing wounds had pleaded tearfully during the investigation.
Violet, this marriage is off. If after hearing this, you still want to marry him, you're disowned.
The bride's father shook with rage as he declared,
Of course, I won't marry him.
The bride, who had seemed meek, now spoke with determined anger.
Mark, given the severity of this, I can keep you employed. This is too much, even for private matters.
The president said sternly, finalizing Mark's fate.
Damn it. All because of you guys.
Groaning with frustration, Mark clutched his head.
Careful now. If you even think of retaliating against me, Violet, Chris, or his sister, we've got lawyers ready to take action. And yes, we've recorded this entire conversation.
Kevin warned sharply, causing Mark to bite his lip in vexation.
The women you've wronged have come forward saying they'll sue you. So it seems you're in for a tough time.
Kevin added, making Mark slump in defeat. Mark, think about all the despicable things you've done. The accumulated resentment of those women will come back to haunt you. I told him, watching him turn pale. You boasted about having no evidence, but nothing is absolute. Evidence will surface, whether it's diaries, recordings, or bank transfers from the women you exploited. Each of them may have been frightened by your shadow and become submissive, but if they think they have friends, they can stand up with courage. You never know where things will come apart. Be prepared.
What?
I continued, approaching Mark slowly and resting a hand on his shoulder as he crumbled to the floor, covering his ears. Eventually, Mark was fired from the company. As Kevin predicted, a group of women sued him, leading to his conviction and imprisonment for the severe trauma he caused. I attended the trial, where I saw Mark, who had aged significantly, losing all traces of his once charming appearance, resembling a withered old man instead. The bitterness of 25 years hadn't fully faded, but knowing that no more women would suffer at Mark's hands brought some relief. I chose not to tell my sister about these events or Mark's downfall, to avoid reopening old wounds, considering there'd be no further interaction with him.
Congratulations on becoming the sales director, Chris.
My colleagues greeted me warmly as I took on my new role. Thanks, Kevin. You are also senior manager now. I'm counting on you, I replied, acknowledging the busy days ahead for us both. While the wedding fiasco became known to all, mainly for the boycotted high-priced gifts, the subsequent lawsuits against Mark circulated as rumors without ever implicating my sister, which was a relief. Violet, the former bride, had since recovered and continued her work at the reception, always with a smile. My sister is getting married, I shared with Kevin over coffee.
That's wonderful news. Congratulations.
Jer, it's to a high school classmate who's always cared for her, waiting patiently until she was ready. I smiled at the thought of my sister's happiness. Listening to my story, Kevin and my other colleagues shared in the joy, reinforcing my resolve to cherish the invaluable people in my life, my workmates, family, and friends.